So I realized I haven't done a live stream in a long time, and I was watching some other people's live streams recently and just sort of wondering about whether or not this was a platform I enjoy doing. So let me just wait a little bit for some people to come on, and then if you have to ask me, you can. But really, I was just inspired by the idea that as an ENFJ, my NE is like something I could use for fun, but I don't really think, oh, I'm going to go online and bounce around ideas with people. Like, the way I do my videos is, oh, I have a revelation. Now I'm going to tell you what that revelation was. So I was just thinking about that. Hey guys, if you have any questions, you can ask them. I haven't done a live stream in a while, so that's pretty much what this is about. And I was just thinking about as well how I think doing live streams makes my FE feel like bonded with my audience is another good reason why. I've said this before, but I'm always so surprised when my live stream videos get a lot of views compared to other videos that I've put more time into refining an idea to share. And I've asked you guys before, what do you like about live streams? If you haven't told me that, comment below. But I think because I don't really watch them, I have not really understood the point, because everything needs to have a point, right? But yeah, I've been rethinking that, especially I'm sort of like thinking of ways to be more interactive. And really, I guess really I'm just having an existential crisis about my current life path due to lots of sensory limits coming at me at once. And I'm rearranging my schedule right now. So I've been thinking about, I have like a mental list of like 20 to like 50 different video ideas that I have thought of doing, some of which including people that you guys might follow. And, I'm turning into that girl that's like, oh yeah, we'll do that sometime. Oh yeah, we'll do that sometime. And it's like, I really don't like to be that girl. But the reason why that keeps happening to me is because I am packing my schedule intensely. So yeah, I was wondering, or I was just thinking that maybe I would schedule in a time for a live stream once a week or less than that, if that was something that people find fun. Because, I do enjoy it, but what's so weird is, I don't know if this is just like my FI ignoring or something in socionics, but me enjoying doing a live stream is not a good reason to do a live stream for me necessarily. It's so much easier for me to be creative and share if I can see this sort of end goal of like, what can someone gain from this? Or if it's a super NI idea, if I have like this sudden revelation or this sudden wisdom or insight that comes to me, I just have to get it out. Like, if I don't get it out, I'll forget it. And so that's another thing that my channel has been, is just a way to release so much of what's buzzing in my mind. But yeah. So I need to go scroll up to make sure I do this in order, but I'm curious, Zachary, what you mean by, is it possible that people watching live streams could be seeking some sort of validation? What can you elaborate on that? Because I'm curious about that. Because I think maybe subconsciously part of the reason why I haven't done live streams before is because I thought, oh, well, I mean, what would people want to talk about? I don't know. Like, I'm not super good on the fly. Like, me deciding to just do this live stream right now was kind of me trying to challenge myself. And almost every time I do anything with like extroverted perceiving, it's because my NI decided, you know what? Yes, this would be a good challenge for you or something. And then I sort of like make myself do it. But yeah, let me check out these comments. Devin, you don't give me too many compliments. No, you aren't coming off weird. In fact, whenever TJs validate me, it's like the best thing ever because I feel completely like helpless to being able to. What really sucks about like when you're an FE Dom, it's like I really do, and especially as an Enneagram type 2, I really want to, in the way I put myself out there, make everyone happy, even though that's kind of impossible. And since learning about type, realizing that my TE just like I don't really value TE, and like it kind of makes me think, oh no, well then I have nothing to offer for TE FI users. And so that's why like a lot of my typology journey has been trying to figure out not just TE and FI, but the other functions, trying to figure out like, well, how do they work, and what buttons can I push to make them happy, And so yeah, I'm always trying, probably way harder than it even seems, for my content to not only be helpful to FJs or whatever, although in general, I make the content that I wish to see in the world. Make the content you wish to see in the world, whether that's your social media or whatever. It's like, at the end of the day, I'm doing this for me. Like, I'm doing this because I want to help people, but also, like, I'm me, and so I'm being me. I'm being who I would have wanted to watch 5 years ago that wasn't there. You know what I mean? So I am like okay with the fact that a lot of what I say probably resonates way more with NFJs than any other type, because that's just sort of how it is. Yeah, I do want to do a live stream eventually with Hannah Zelswer. That is someone that I have connected with from YouTube that I have been like, oh my gosh, I want to do a live stream with you. It's hard for me because whenever I have like an idea that I really want to do, it's like I feel like such an intense desire to make it happen that I feel really guilty if it doesn't happen. But in general, there are actually a few astrologers on YouTube that I would like to sort of interview and sort of showcase their type as well, while also sort of allowing them to share their channels. Like, I don't want to I really want to collaborate with other MBTI YouTubers that I haven't even gotten a chance to yet, because there's several of them. But also other channels that I like, or other people that I like, people in my life. Like, whenever people don't know that I'm an ENFJ, it bothers me. And I know I've talked about this before, but I realize that I don't even really show my FE that often if I'm just talking to the camera. Like, if I'm talking to you guys who's watching my live stream, it's like different. But I do want to more regularly, collaborate, because when really it's just been, let me just take this idea out of my head so that I can focus on something else. That's what it's been for a long time. Thank you, Amanda. That's really nice of you. And I always really enjoy whenever I'm inspired to say something and then I make a video and then I find out that it landed at just the right time for someone, because whenever that happens to me, it's really awesome. So when Phage, when you said, I get that it's hard for you to come up with topics to get to a point, but you make it sound like no one could value live streams. Yeah, I didn't mean to imply that at all. In fact, my FE sees objectively there is a value, because objectively people value it. So it doesn't really matter what I feel. The fact that there are, like, not even just YouTube, but like Facebook Live and like Twitch and everything like that, that's really popular. Like, obviously people enjoy it. So what's actually sort of strange about me is that if I don't enjoy something that everybody else enjoys, like, it can kind of bother my FE, in the sense of, it's not that I'm like trying to necessarily become a carbon copy of everyone else, because that's not it at all. I feel like I'm a pretty individual person. But when that happens, I feel like there's value there, clearly. So what is it? Why can't I see it? And I always feel or act as though it's my responsibility to see the value, whether or not it's mine. So, for example, like Game of Thrones. I don't like that show. I've tried to watch it. Everybody's always telling me it's a great show. I mean, for some reason, it bothers me that whenever I watch it, pretty much my TI has lots of judgments about it. And I don't really like whenever whenever I'm viewing something and all I can feel is my TI judging it, and I don't see the value. It's like I have an extreme, I like do what I can to make sure I see the value. So yeah, that's weird. I think, though, really the reason why I titled this "Our Live Streams Pointless," NE and NI, is that I do think that NE users seem to really like um, sort of chat rooms. Uh, and they can be fun. It's just like I've tried so many times to like get involved in like random chats, but like there's so many conversations going on at once. So that's why I feel like NE users like really do enjoy it. Like, even when I'm in groups, I tend to prefer everyone sort of talking about something together, or even like if it's a larger group. I don't know. It makes me uncomfortable whenever, if I'm in like a group of like 5 people and we're all like sort of in a circle, and then like 2 people start having a one-on-one conversation, and then like this person feels left out of that, and so we're like 3 awkwardly standing there, or like, I don't know, like whenever there's like a divide in the group like that, I would so much rather just, okay, you guys break off now and form your own group and talk about whatever you want, and then you guys break off. I don't know, like whenever there's like a lot going on at once, I am like inspired to try and like organize the chaos pretty much. Yeah, Phage says you're too hard on yourself. It's okay to have fun. That was actually another reason why I did this live stream, is I was thinking, you know what? Things don't have to be that deep. Like, it could just be fun. And you know what? I recently bought I recently bought I can't even think of the word right now, a sewing machine, because I came to the incredible revelation. I keep saying that word because I don't know what other word to use. But I don't have any hobbies. I have passions, yes, but I don't have hobbies. And I was like, it would be fun if I could sew my own clothes. And then I'm like, but you don't have time for that, because you should be, increasing your skill set or increasing your passions or whatever, or doing projects with people, which that's fun. And like really the goal is to get my life to a point where I can just be me, and whenever I feel inspired to do something, I do it, and then my work and my life become one, and I get to share my skills and my values and to people that value them, and then for me to have enough to sustain myself and then support people that I value, like, and for it's just to get to that symbiotic exchange, like that's the goal. And so for me, like, yeah, there really is a lot of typology people in Kansas City. Sorry, I got distracted by that. I've literally run into on the street like 3 different people from the city, and that like are subscribed to me. And Kansas City is not that big, and my channel is not that big, so that's like really weird to me. And I do want to do a meetup. And see, yeah, Jason says YouTubing is a hobby, and I think it is a hobby, but everything that I do for fun, I just give it the most. And it's kind of annoying. Like I've realized that I'm kind of not great at being okay at things. I would so much rather be like an expert at some things and like know nothing about other things. I don't know, it's weird. People, and I find it funny when people have typed me as like a thinker, because my TI is pretty decent at typology, but if you were to test my TI on literally anything else, you would definitely see the disconnect. And it's like, I really reserve my intellect for the things that I love. And so I really, ever since I was a kid, my ESFJ mom has been telling me I put all of my eggs into one basket. And that's pretty much what I do. Everything, I'm always choosing which basket is the best basket for all of my eggs. Okay, I'm trying to scroll up again. I'm not trying to forget everyone's comments. I just keep going on rants. And this is why I feel like I haven't done that many live streams in the past, is that my thought process is very linear. Thank you guys so much for all the nice comments. Okay, the very first, Glown Thug, I hope you're still here, and I'm sorry it took me so long, but do you have any tips for INTPs who are stuck on what path to take? So INTPs have extroverted intuition, and so it's going to be more difficult than an NISE user to try and narrow down to one path. So INTPs might be afraid of the consequences of what would happen if I pick this and then I'm not allowed to go back, or like if I choose this path, then what about the other paths? And if you guys could let me know if I am breaking up on your end or if it's just my end, be great. Sorry about that. But really, I think that INTPs, if you cower at the idea of narrowing it down, just realize that you don't have to narrow it down. You can choose multiple things, and also you can take your time thinking and refining about what you want to do. And another thing about that is that INTPs have inferior FE. So maybe check in with your FE and ask yourself how it's doing, because you might subconsciously be doing something only because you want to receive approval from people, and it might not actually be because you want to. And a lot of INTPs might think, no, I'm not that sort of person that cares about that. But just ask yourself that. Just at least make sure your TI considered it. And, I'd have to know a little bit more about the ways that INTPs tend to get stuck. But really, it's like nobody can tell an INTP what to do. And so you're going to have to find something that really works for you, that you enjoy doing. And don't just choose what makes the most sense. Like, make sure you enjoy doing it as well. I'm just looking. Sorry, everyone. Okay. Zachary says, my ego is greatly offended that you didn't read my answer to the question that you asked. That's the thing, is that I have a hard time just like keeping up and like reading all of these aloud. It's not that I'm not going to. Okay, there, now I see it. Zachary says, I think more than anything, people watch live streams because it provides a chance to see how the idea of self is perceived by like-minded people. See, if anything, I can see how maybe the person doing the live stream might be getting some sort of validation from like a bunch of people sitting around just listening to them talk. And I guess maybe one thing that I've thought about it before is that it almost seems sort of one-sided, like a weird power dynamic where the person, like, I'm talking and everyone's commenting. And so maybe like that's what has made me uncomfortable, but I don't really see how people watching would how that would get a chance to see themselves perceived by like-minded people. Yeah, and I really do. Julie says that it's interesting to sort of interact with your followers, and I really love that. I really do enjoy that. And I think a lot of things in my life that I don't do, that I know I enjoy doing, and then I think it doesn't make sense to do it, it's kind of like some sort of subconscious fear, probably, of like what would happen if it doesn't work out. Because, okay, yeah, this was actually something I was thinking about earlier that I was going to go into, is about how I really like to be a expert on things, and I would rather just give up on things that I am not an expert at. And it's not because I need to be, it's not what it looks like. It's like, I guess I really believe that everybody has a purpose and a path for them, and that certain skills you're naturally good at and certain things you aren't. And to me, it's sort of about maximizing myself and like self-actualization. It's not, if I'm not great at something, I'm not like a sore loser about things. I don't really care about things I'm not great at, because I don't judge myself by those standards. So it doesn't really bother me. Like, I'm very much like, yes, this is my skill, this isn't, so whatever. But I sort of realize that part of that is kind of sad. If I think about, like, I used to paint all the time as a kid, and then somewhere along the line I realized I wasn't good at it and I stopped, and that's sort of sad, because you should be able to do things that are fun, whether or not you're good at them or whether or not it makes sense. And that's something with FE, is that FE will sort of look at the objective emotional data and feedback from other people, from what could happen. You know, I'm not explaining that well. I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. It's like me having a personal feeling about something isn't really much to me. Like, it needs to be vetted with everything else and all of this other emotional feedback to where it can sort of lead me to be the type to make a lot of decisions based on shoulds, which is different than I think how thinkers will make decisions that are like, this is the logical one. And for me, it's more like, I should do this because this will get me the most beneficial outcome emotionally, and it will make others happy, and it's a win-win for me and them. And so I should do this because if I do this, it's going to get this outcome. Okay, I'm trying to catch up. I'm reading everyone's comments. I'm sorry that I didn't read them earlier. I'm mostly just reading out loud the questions, but for those of you who follow Dave's superpowers, I am blast first. So sorry for blasting so much. Oh my gosh. Casper says, your mom told you that you held too many watermelons at once. I've never heard that one before, but that's definitely true. Motivating an INTP is like parting the Red Sea. That's true. Okay, Zachary says thoughts on how the recognition of the shadow is a rabbit hole that those who don't travel down can never be the true version of themselves, but those who do travel down question what the self is. That's an interesting thought because I do think that in general, if I was just to describe the universe, I would say there is all this mix, there's all this duality of energy that is inspired to come together and integrate, whether that be hot and cold, light and dark, whatever it is, spiritually, good and evil, whatever duality you want to say. I believe that, shadow seeks to integrate with the light and light seeks to shine a light on the shadow. And that's just sort of how the world is. And so, because I believe that, it makes sense. And I believe that that's how it works with people too, is that we have our egos that we really take pride in and are conscious of. And then we have our shadow side that we don't really take pride in and we don't really choose to see. But whether or not we choose to see it doesn't really matter because it's there beneath the surface and it's brewing. And I believe that the shadow can impact relationships as well. And so it's whether or not you choose to go there, it's going to try and find its way to you anyway. And so I do think that if you don't choose to go down there, then you are not seeing the full picture of yourself. But I think that if you do choose to go down there, then you know how much work you have to do, and you're so aware of all the parts of yourself that you don't understand. And so it's sort of never ending. And I'm not sure if by the time in our lifetimes, if we're going to like fully reach a point where it's like, okay, I've fully integrated my shadow. So I think it's just being aware that that's the direction things are headed, and that light seeks to integrate dark. So okay, so Devin asked if you include my name, does it highlight for me? Yes. And that is very NTJ of you to suggest that if people have a question for them to tag me. That is definitely a good idea. And to answer your other question briefly, you said, what's your end game as far as typology? For me, I've just been interested in typology since 2012, and it's one of those things where I don't really see my interest ever fading. Every single day, I feel like I understand things about functions and people better, and my own ideas are starting to form more and more. Where, when I first started my channel, it was more like, let me just explain my opinion of how I feel about these certain types, or let me share some basic concepts from what I've read about Carl Jung, where now like my own ideas are starting to form more, and I do want to continue to pursue it and share more of my ideas. I do have a typing service available now, and that is going to continue to perform to be the best it could be. I've had dreams for a while of figuring out a way to do some sort of typing service that has a whole panel of people. So like not just me and Crystal, but other people that are knowledgeable on the topic. I think that would be a really cool way to type someone. So because I've thought like, okay, if the TE way of doing things is that you have to like do this test or this checklist, then what could be like an equally valid FE way of ensuring someone's type? And, I still don't really know that answer, but, really I want to keep sharing insights and content, but also I'm getting a degree in psychology so that I can be certified in things, and I would have the tools to know how to make my own test or whatever. Like, I just want to keep it open to what I feel like doing. And yeah. Okay. N Blooming says, hello, INFP here. I'm also struggling with what path to take. Right now I'm going into science, but I want to get into something along the lines of art and philosophy. I feel so lost. Actually, this sort of connects with what Devin was saying. Another passion of mine, aside from just typology, is I really enjoy helping people figure out how to forge their own paths and figure out some steps to take. And I think as I am very entrepreneurial with my own career, I eventually want to help people do the same if they wish, or whether or not they literally work for themselves. They can figure out a path for them, because I think, so I am not sure how old you are and blooming, but if you're still trying to figure out your career in your late teens or early 20s, or even if you're older than that, right now is a very unstable time in the economy. I mean, I got a journalism degree, and a lot of newspapers are dying. It's very, very difficult to get an entry-level journalism position right now. And I know friends who have moved all over. I had a friend move to Hawaii who then was fired after a year due to budget cuts. And so I'm familiar with the dyeing industry. There's lots of dyeing industries, there's lots of transformation going on. And so I guess, some other advice that I feel like NPs would need to hear as well is if you can increase your skills and if you can also know more about who you are and what you value and what you want out of life, then that is going to help you more than knowing for sure like what job you want to have, because so much is changing right now that it's really hard to predict. Who's to say you can't go into science and then also go and do art and philosophy? Like, there are ways to combine these things, and you don't have to make a definitive decision. Like, you can always change it. So, yeah. Jack LeVota says that he's my biggest fan. Thanks, Jack. He always is. He's like I don't know if he's an INTP or an ENTP, but my little cousin. And every time he sees that I'm live, he comments to let me know that he's my biggest fan. And he says that even though he doesn't care to watch any of my videos, he'll still go in and like things or like refresh so I can get ads. So thank you, Jack. So Bethany asked, how do you feel about people changing their type? So I think that one of the main reasons why people talk about and believe that your type can change is because of a misunderstanding of what type is. And your cognitive type is your natural cognitive wiring of how you prefer to make judgments and how you prefer to perceive the world. But a lot of what you read out there about your personality, it's very behavior oriented. And so in psychology, if you are measuring someone based on a trait, then traits do change over time. And you can improve your personality traits. But your personality type, or the Jungian cognitive type, I don't believe you can change that. Most people in the space don't believe that. But I understand why people think that is because if you are defining the type based on their behavior, which is, in my opinion, the incorrect way to define someone's personality, then it's going to get really confusing, because you might go from being a person that is really um, really extroverted and hanging out with people all the time, and then you get burnt out, and then you start to enjoy reading and staying in or whatever. And so it's like, yeah, your behavior can change, and that's why it's so important to make sure when we're learning about the cognitive functions and type and everything, to make sure that you are realizing that it's not necessarily the behavior that you see, it's more about the why and the cognition behind it. So I'm still scrolling and it keeps like taking me down, so I apologize it's not in order, but Angantir, I don't know how to say your name, I'm sorry, but journalism is oversaturated, not necessarily dead. I don't think I don't think communicating will ever go out of style. I think people are always going to need to know information and the truth on things. But, as journalism as we've known it is definitely changing, and, paying for media is definitely changing, because the thing is that people expect free media nowadays. Like, you guys are watching me for free, and whether this is entertainment for you or whatever, like, most of my entertainment is from YouTube. I don't have cable. I don't pay for journalism. I see what's trending on Twitter, and, I watch YouTubers to even find out about the news, or like I'll view something in incognito mode. And so the way that people pay for media is just really hard right now for journalists to stay afloat. And so that's why it's hard for entry level journalists to get a job, is because the ad revenue is not only are subscriptions declining, but ad revenue is declining as well. So Jesse says, if you could choose another type to be, which type would you want to be and why? So I'm not just saying this to humor you because I know your type. I feel like it would be fun to be an ENTP because, you know, this answer has changed throughout different times. Like I've said before that it would be fun to be an ENFP for a day, but never in a million years would I say that I want to be an ENFP throughout their life. um, I feel like I'm similar enough to ENTPs to where I would know somewhat of what to expect, or I can at least guess, but also it would be very different. And, also as a feeler, my feelings can get sort of out of control sometimes and hold me back. And so sometimes I might wish that it didn't hold me back, or that I can just be more logical sometimes. It would be nice to be able to have thinking and feeling in the middle, so I could balance that more. But, obviously, I really just want to say too that every single type has its problems. And so it's like easy for me to say that it would be nice to be another type, but because since I'm a feeler first and my thinking is inferior, my judging functions are super stretched out. It's like easy for me to say that it would be nice if that was in the middle, but I also have no clue what it's like for the observing axis to be so spread out. And so I feel like it's just all trade-offs. But so oh, hey Anson, how's it going? Um okay, Race says, do you have any advice for INFJs dealing with depression? So I did make a video once about, are INFJs really depressed? And that wasn't a serious pointed video because as I said in that video, I'm not a mental health professional. And so depression can happen to any personality type. But the reason why I made that video was because I've gotten that question before of people wondering if INFJs were more likely to be depressed than other types. But one thing I will say is that I think that it is super easy for INFJs to feel alone in the world and to feel like the world was not built for them, because anyone with NI it's a very rare, or it's the most rare cognitive function, and a lot of systems in the world are very SI heavy, and so it can be very hard for NI users to know how to insert themselves into the world. And so really, I don't think that the world is super fair right now. I mean, maybe you can believe that God is fair ultimately, or some higher power is fair or just, but a lot of the man-made systems really just aren't fair. And I think if you are an INFJ and you wonder if you have depression, definitely talk to somebody about it and don't try and bottle everything up and do everything yourself, but also realize that it's okay to have feelings. And I know it might be weird to say that to a feeler, but you guys don't really like to feel FI that much, and and you are worried sometimes that if you express your emotions that people won't like you, or that. So like, just sort of realizing that it's okay to not be okay and that you can't ask for help is really the first thing I would say to an INFJ. So Devin asks which Democratic candidates I prefer, and to be honest, I am so stressed out about the whole thing. I'm so stressed out about it because I don't know if I should vote for who I think is going to win, who I think has the best chance of beating Trump, because it's not a secret that I'm not a Trump fan. But so right now I'm sort of just taking the perspective of listening to, or like, as opposed to viewing candidates as a whole, thinking more about their platform and what they say and what they believe in, like their ideas. Because really, there are things I like about all of them. I will say something that has been troubling me, that I will admit on this live stream, is that I'm a huge Marianne Williamson fan, and I have been. I've always read her books, and I'm a fan of her. And so I'm not saying I want her to be president, but if she was president, I wouldn't be mad about it. Like, I would not, like, if it was her versus Trump, I would definitely vote for her. And I definitely think she would do 1,000 times better than Trump. But I totally hear, like, I've been following politics ever since I was a child. I don't know if all of you guys know that about me. Like, my family was very political, and so I've never been able to avoid politics. And so a lot of it just really, really stresses me out. Like, I just want everyone to get along. I mean, I personally believe that America is sort of going through this transition phase. We talk about the shadow and the personality, and I feel like the personality of America has like a shadow that we're integrating right now. And racism has existed long before Trump was racist. Sexism has existed long before Trump was sexist. And I think that we're going to have to reckon with a lot of issues that have been festering underneath the surface for so long. And whoever, it's going to be the same fears that got Trump elected that are going to have to be the fears that we're going to have to work through. And it's going to be, honestly, those people that are going to decide who the next president is. I almost feel like I don't even know if I have a say. And like, I do have a say, but like, I almost just feel like whatever was going on in the middle is going to have to reckon with each other, if that makes sense. I don't think it does. Okay, I'm just trying to see if there are any questions. I probably should head out soon, although this is fun, and so I'm probably going to just try and do this more often and, give a heads up, probably. Dan asks, do you find it interesting when actors play a character that have a different that is very different from their type. Yeah, and I think when that happens, it actually makes it hard for me to type the person. Though I don't watch that much TV, honestly. So, I Snow Yazin says, judging over perceiving, what are some personal experiences with being somewhat spontaneous and taking things on the flow? So, for me, with my NI as my second function and SE as my third, um, I really don't like sensory routine, um, even though I'm a J. Like, my life, I want to be different every day. But the thing that still makes me a J, that makes my NI try and control the SE, is that I want to establish a sort of growth mindset or a direction or purpose that I can stay on every single day and keep myself mentally prepared for everything, so that I can sort of enter this flow state sort of thing. And I want to pretty much design a life where I have freedom to do that, but I don't really allow myself to have freedom in the moment, or I don't really soak it all in the moment. It's like I'm so focused on trying to be on my purpose and on my path to design in the future, I can feel free in the moment. And so that's what's sort of hard for me, is realizing that I can give that to myself now. I do like whenever people, most of my friends have been perceivers in my life, like mostly NFP and NTPs. I really enjoy when friends or whoever will just text me randomly and say, let's do this right now, because whenever I, even though I do like to mentally prepare for things in my own life, whenever things are spontaneous, it's a pleasant surprise, and I like to be dragged to new things. So, Far asks, are INFJs into cancel culture? Well, first of all, I don't think that you can say that any specific type is going to be more likely to believe something than another type. If an INFJ is into cancel culture, then that would be because their NI and FE got to that conclusion. If they aren't, it would be because their NI and FE decided that it was harmful. And here are some of my thoughts on cancel culture, which I could make lots of videos on this. Is really, the short answer is that it's so much more nuanced than what everybody likes to say about it. Is that there are people that deserve to be called out and deserve to be canceled, where they've harmed people and or groups of people, and those people have the right to question them and critique them openly. And then the people have the right to decide whether or not they want to keep working with that person, or keep promoting that person, or keep following that person. So some of that, that's just a consequence. And, public figures, they have to be more careful, because, with great power comes great responsibility. And if you fuck it up, then you're going to have a consequence, and that's just how it is. But I think that because of that, because that's gotten more common, and we are starting to call out people and stuff as a society, and social media makes that easy. What I find disturbing is there's a lot of people coming out of the woodworks that just enjoy dragging people down for the sake of it, and they take pleasure in other people's pain, and I find that disgusting, no matter what you believe. To really just take pleasure in somebody's pain, like, make sure that you're actually taking pleasure in justice, and not like, oh, haha, like, you get to drag someone down now, like, And I think it's really a shame that that is starting to happen more often because it discredits the people that actually do have a critique. And I think a lot of people don't know how to differentiate those things. Especially, I think that you almost need stronger FE or to be a stronger feeler to really notice those things. I mean, if you're a thinker who disagrees with that, let me know like how you see it. But you know, for my FE at least, it is pretty black and white. Like you're either sharing a real concern or you are trying to drag someone down. And it's just since both of them might seem emotional or they might have an emotional tone, if you aren't really checking out what that emotional tone is or checking out that person's motivation, you might be wrong and you might judge them incorrectly. And you might think, what you might think when someone has a genuine concern, oh, you're just trying to bring someone down, and then you can dismiss their genuine concern. Or you can allow people that are just being bullies and just like dragging people down, you can allow them to continue. So I think you just really have to be discerning about every single case. And unfortunately, with cancel culture, people are lumping in people way too often. You can't just be lumping in like, oh well, this guy was a predator, and so this other guy also must be because this last guy was a predator. Like you have to really do your due diligence because these are real people's lives, and so I feel like people forget that it's real people on the other side of the screen, and yeah. Oh, hi, Eric. Hyperspace says theater is a particular place where ENFJs in your flow state. Yes, at least for me, I did theater. Um, yeah, I do really think that ENFJs and ENTPs do get along well, but for some reason in my experience, ENTPs like underestimate me a lot. And then like a lot of times what happens is then they realize that they did underestimate me. And it's actually interesting. I have I've gotten this yearbook message from a few people that two of which I know for sure are ENTPs. Hey Megan, I used to hate you, but now I really like you. And I've gotten that message. Well, and I just I don't know. I always feel like I can read ENTPs better than they can read me, at least at first. And maybe that's not always the case, but NE and NI can really just get each other wrong or have the wrong impression, I think. Or also it takes me forever to share my opinions or like feel comfortable sharing. So it's like I need that FE in order to feel like I'm allowed to share my opinion. I need to feel like it's going to be received well. Whereas ENTPs are more likely to share the opinion and then like not really share your I don't know. Their FE comes after. And so they aren't like waiting for FE before they share their TI. So that could be sort of a barrier. But I think as far as how we actually function, it's pretty interesting. Because like I can relate to a lot of the problems that ENTPs have in their life. Because I've noticed that like polar FI and ignoring FI can be similar or can be expressed similarly. Hi, Austin. Hey, Rudy. Okay, sorry. I'm trying to like scroll and it's not working. Okay, so Eric, I'm curious if you could share. Um, Not necessarily, I'm not as curious about me in particular, but why would an ENTP underestimate an ENFJ, if you want to share that? Because I feel like, well, honestly, I feel this way about ENTJs as well, where I sometimes will sense that we would really get along, but they like can't sense that about me. And ENTPs and ENTJs, for different reasons, um, I don't know. So my best friend Crystal from my podcast, who is an ENFP, she just tells me that I don't share the right things with people, like my TE, or I don't think to argue about what my good qualities are or anything like that, because I don't really care to impress anyone. Thanks, Jesse. Yeah, Juglin Pagasi says you're constantly checking everything you say to make sure it doesn't make people mad. And I remember your video on INTPs, you couldn't figure out what to say. Yeah, part of that has to do with me being like sort of afraid of INTPs, but also you're right, I don't want to make people mad, but also I do think that the TI in an ENFJ, the way that it works is that it kind of has to fit with everyone. So like my actual thoughts are, they tend to be sort of very conditional, because the way I use my TI is different than how like TPs, it will be really about their own life and their own opinions and what works for them. And since mine exists to help my FE and like serve my FE, it's like the reason why I even have it is just so different, that when I'm sharing my opinions, it's because I considered all of this FE data for like so long, and like I'm trying to find a solution that works for all people. And so I guess like I failed. If I say an opinion and it offends like a huge group of people or even a school of thought, then I might not have considered my thought long enough. Or if I have considered my thought long enough, and if that happens, I probably won't be surprised. Because you can't please everyone, and sometimes my opinions are going to be controversial, and I know that, and I know exactly how people are going to dislike it. So host Eric says ENTPs underestimate the nuance and power of FENI and overestimate the nuance and power of NIFE. It's funny you say that, because I feel like literally everybody does that. And I don't really know why that is. But at least that's how I perceive it in the type community, and that's why I wanted to make videos. Um, it's almost like people view ENFJs as like the least intuitives, which is just sort of bullshit. And I think part of it is because our FE wants so badly to get on with everyone that we almost can act as though we get on better than we do. And so like a lot of other intuitives are always like, oh, like no one understands me, I'm so different. And like I think that ENFJs don't want to be different, really, and we just are. And I mean, like, not that it's not a contest of like who's the most different or whatever, but I do think that ENFJs tend to kind of resent the fact that we don't really fit into the group. We want to, but I personally would say that ENFJs should be leading the group. and should stop trying to fit into the group. Because ENFJs are natural leaders that see the consequences of things and consider everybody's point of view. And, ENFJs, a lot of you guys, or a lot of us, do have business being in leadership and might not step into it because we're afraid of what people think. And I just think that if an ENFJ is always going to be trying to say the right thing to make everyone like them, they're going to be extremely unhappy, because NI and SE wants to innovate and wants to be a catalyst for things. And, ENFJs want to change the world. And so how are you going to do that? And that's the main thing that I've had to really think through, is that you can't just say you want to change the world. You can't just say you want to see a better world. It's what are you doing to yourself to be a better person every day? And how is your example going to be used? And ENFJs have a great opportunity to step into that example if that's what they choose. So, okay, DMCG, you've said a few things about ISFPs. ISFPs and ENFJs. Honestly, I don't know if I really know any ISFPs that I'm super close with. So I do know one from Twitter, but I feel like I don't know her well enough to know how I would get along with an ISFP, although I can see how theoretically I think that we would get along a lot. And I would like to have more ISFP friends. For some reason, I just haven't really attracted ISFPs in my life. I've been very hurt by FI DOMs in the past. I mean, mostly INFPs. FI really, really is hurtful to me in many ways. That I think that with the ISFP, it's a little bit mitigated because I am less confused, because their SE will at least be direct with me. But yeah, Jesse says an ENTP might underestimate an ENFJ because an ENTP might perceive an ENFJ as being too narrow-minded and unwilling to explore possibilities. Yes, absolutely. And I think that, ENFJs can think that ENTPs waste time or something, or focus on things that don't matter. So, I don't know. And the more I even think about personality compatibility, the more I just really think it's about the person at the end of the day, because there's always going to be an issue. There's always going to be something between your type and somebody else's type. And I think that a lot of people think that if they find the perfect match of a personality type, that means hooray, I found this match, and so I'm not going to have to do any work in the relationship in order for it to function. And that's not true. And I mean, I'm dating an INFJ and we have the same functions, and that doesn't mean that we just get to read each other's mind, because every relationship requires communication, and it's going to be harder if you use a different function. But yeah. I see. I mentioned this earlier, but there's more of you guys here. One of the reasons why I don't do live streams is because I can't think about multiple things at once. I'm trying to make sure that I am reading everyone's comments. Tom asked if I'm friends with Pukoki. Yes. Yeah, Ryan says, I've been very hurt and confused by an ESFP as an INFJ. It's mostly FE and FI. Yeah, FE and FI is just really, it's really difficult. Like, okay, as Talking with Famous People says, FI is a poisonous discharge that befouls all it touches. Now, clearly, speaking as a FI polar person, but I've said before, and I believe that, your blind spot, point of least resistance function, it's the function that, yes, you're not really good at it and you don't really care about it, whatever, everything you've read about it. But also, I think that if you, like, my blind spot is SI, that gives me a unique opportunity in order to see what can go wrong with super high SI users. Like, I am very aware of all of the things that could potentially really suck about SI. And I do think that ENTPs and ESTPs offer a really interesting perspective on how FI can actually be really hurtful and really irrational and really cause a lot of harm. And, I'm biased with that as well, in a way, because I don't value FI. But yeah, Rachel, FI is INFPs and ISFPs. Yeah, talking with famous people, we do waste time and focus on shit that doesn't matter. That's true. Honestly, the whole alpha quadra to me, I just don't understand how you choose to spend your time. It's interesting. But also, I was talking earlier about how I don't know how to have hobbies, and that's definitely not true for alphas. Thank you for the encouragement, uh, all of you. Cannabear, Eric, yes, I'm not an NE Dom. Yeah, that actually, it's like I don't see the point of live streams because I feel like I'm not giving my undivided attention, which technically I am. But for some reason, whenever my mind is going in multiple different things, but I feel like I'm trying to embrace not having a point, and so yeah. Um, Danny asks what quadra is ENTJ. ENTJ is the gamma quadra. Someone asked, can INFJ be superficial, care about their appearance? Yes. Um, Anyone can care about that because we all are sort of socialized to care about that. But I do think that um, everyone's going to have their own reasons for that, I guess, depending on their type. So Sruti says FE in a vacuum is perception management and performative niceness. So adding FI is important since it's the function that's responsible for actually caring about people's well-being. I don't know if I would say that FI is responsible for caring about people's well-being. I think that both FI or TI could be used to more specifically solve problems. in specific situations where FE can be a little bit too broad or a little bit too general about things. But I definitely agree that for me, you know, most of you guys know this. It's like for me and FI, it's like can't live with it, can't live without it. Um, you know, there's lots of things I love about FI, and it's really helped me process my emotions. But I have just been, it's like I have FI about FI because I've been hurt so many times by FI users that then I'm now processing my FI about FI. So Canterbury says, I don't think so. Intuitive process comments very quickly. I actually think it's probably extroverted perceiving that would be picking up all the feedback like that. But anyway, I'm about to head out. So thank you so much for watching, and I'm glad that you guys liked this video because I'm going to do more of these more often. So thank you for your support, and yeah, have a wonderful rest of your day.